How's it going? We've got a couple of things coming up. So next weekend on the 23rd, on Saturday, we are having a live podcast recording with Transit Tangents. They're a YouTube channel based out of Austin that talks about a lot of transit topics. And they're going to be in Dallas next weekend, filming one of their 24 hours in Dallas. They do it like for different cities. So they do like, they have one in Salt Lake, one in San Antonio. They're doing one for Dallas. So they're going to do that video. And then we're also going to have an event with them. It's at 1 p.m. and it is at Harwood Park in the community room. This is the address on the screen here. It is currently wrong on Discord. So I'll fix it by tomorrow. We're going to have guests from VIA in that's the transit agency down in San Antonio, and also from an organization called Transit Forward, which is based out of Austin. It's going to be really cool. December 1st, campsing at Victory Station at the Stars game. So just come to Victory Station at 1 p.m. You'll see me there, and we'll get some flyers handed out and some emails sent. December 15th, 2 p.m. is a holiday social at Pegasus Brewing. We're not going to have a general meeting. So this Sunday, the 15th, we're going to do a holiday social instead of a general meeting next month. And that's at Pegasus Brewing Co. It's right down the street here. Okay. Gotten some volunteers for the Dallas Holiday Parade. And that is December 7th at 8 a.m. If you want to do this, please scan this QR code and fill out this form, or come talk to me after the meeting. I just need your email so that I can coordinate with you. So yeah, I'll leave this up for a second so you can scan the form if you want to volunteer. Okay, great. Events, please. So if you to have events, please email me at info@stato.org. Please help me. It's a lot of work, and I can't do it all by myself. And we can have more fun events if more people help me. Okay, and then last thing from me is I'm going to stack of flyers. I'm going to hand them out. I'm going to pass them along the aisle to all of you people. And if you can, like, ask someone on your train to work or at your bus stop, be like, hey, did you hear about these funding cuts they want to do? Like, just start like a little conversation with them and be like, hey, can you scan this QR code and send an email? That would be awesome. It'd be great if we can get like everybody to do like 2 of those. Okay. That's all I got.
Okay, hey everyone, just a reminder to sign in. Kree, is that first or the next slide? Okay, perfect. Go back, all the way. Here we go. Okay, so please sign in. Just a reminder, as our bylaws are being published, when we ratify them, we are going to expect people to kind of have a rolling membership role to be considered for things like voting on officer elections and other policies. David, Phyllis, I did sign you guys in already. If you need a computer to sign in, I've got one here. I will be over on the side. Either come to me or raise your hand for the next few minutes, and we'll get you guys recorded in the room. Okay. So we got the upcoming events. Okay, so I think we were gonna jump into everyone's reports starting now.
Should we give them a few minutes sign in?
Absolutely. Let me go back there. Everyone gets 2 minutes. Okay. Does anybody need a computer to sign in or would prefer to do it that way? Wait a minute. Okay, everybody good? Signed in? Very good. Okay. Okay, that's good. So Connor, we wanted to discuss. Okay. So for those of you who are not on the GroupMe or Discord, we have Nadine joining us here in a bit, the CEO of DART. This QR code will take you to a questions page where you can submit questions for consideration. We're going to have about half an hour between presentations and questions. So, you know, Alex is going through them, and we'll have our set going. You wanted to discuss the.
So yeah, you can submit your questions through that QR code there. We may edit them just for conciseness slightly, and we may have to merge questions duplicates or that may be outside the. So try to avoid like asking, hey, what's up with my bus route? Like my bus was late today. What's the deal with that? Like, let's avoid those kinds of questions. Let's try and move towards like kind of like system-wide questions. The future of DART, advocacy, legislative, kind of priorities, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to get through all of the top of our itinerary of our schedule here today at the top, so that we have the most amount of time at the end for Q&A. So hopefully, ideally, Nadine will have a presentation, and you can just have the rest of the time for Q&A. If we run out of questions on here, we can start taking the mic around if anybody has further questions. But yeah, thank you for your questions.
Okay, has everyone who wants to submit a question been able to scan the QR code? Does anybody want to borrow my computer to submit their questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, looks like you're scanning. I'll wait till your phone's down. Good? Excellent. Okay, so let's jump into these reports then. Connor, you're up first.
Okay. So the 89th legislative session, it has not begun, but filing for bills has begun. So your legislators, your elected officials can now file legislation that could get voted on sometime after March. The first day to file was on November 12th, but earlier, last meeting, I'm sure you'll all recall, a lot of you will, that Plano gave DART this ultimatum where they said, hey, you got to come up with a plan to cut your own budget. And if you don't, we're going to file legislation to the state that will cut your budget. And they said that your deadline to do that was November 11th. Well, November 12th was the first day you could file. So given that ultimatum, we were actually, a lot of us here were actually just refreshing the page where it shows the bills coming in, waiting to see something DART related, but it never showed up. And it hasn't shown up all this week. No legislation to cut DART's funding has been filed yet. That doesn't mean it won't be. Don't celebrate yet. But it hasn't. So we're trying to figure out why that is. Possible reasons. The David Leininger argument. So this is the whole bond covenants thing where DART issued bonds backed by that 1% sales tax. So if the state reduces the contribution cities make to DART, then that violates the bond covenants, and that's extremely illegal. David Leininger said this would cause a cascading crisis of public finance, and maybe no one wants legislation that would lead to such a crisis. I think that's reasonable, but that's one possible reason we haven't seen legislation filed. Another reason is maybe it's no one's priority. There's like over 1,000 bills, 1,200 bills filed day one. No one filed them about DART. So, I mean, maybe, and I could be reading too far into this, but maybe everyone's just got other issues they care more about than what's going on with DART, which is a good thing if they're because we don't have a our legislature isn't very pro transit, so if they're not focused on us, it's probably better right now. Yeah. Um, and another reason I kind of thought of this last minute actually was that a lot of state reps are more supportive of DART than the member cities they come from. Um, for example, if you actually look at Irving City Council hates DART, but all of the representatives in the state legislature who represent Irving, for the most part, they are supportive of DART, like Nathan Johnson, Cassandra Hernandez, Terry Meza. So one thing about local elections is that not a lot of people vote in them, but more people do vote in your state races. I mean, they happen on election year. So the state races, I think that the opinions of those state representatives are more in line with the constituents in the city councils. So it's very possible you can have a lawmaker that comes from a city that's pro-transit when the city, like mayor, is anti-transit. So what is it now? Oh, so here's another thing I saw that was concerning. Everyone know who Chandu is? Who's here? Oh, hello. Yeah, well, we ended up grabbing an extra 30 minutes early because so many people are eager to ask you questions. So we're getting stuff over with so you have more time to answer questions. Yeah, so for those who don't know, that's the CEO of DART. and Enrique. A lot of you know Enrique already. So yeah, while legislation has not been filed yet, it is possible. Chandu said that a lot of people file the worst bills on the deadline in March to catch groups like us off guard. So maybe they didn't file legislation yet because they don't want to opposition to mount so early. I don't know. Again, could be reading too far into this, but legislation did not get filed this week, and we thought it would be. So we're still going to assume the legislation is coming, and we're going to act as if it's going to come. And if it doesn't happen, then great. But it's probably going to. And so in the meantime, I think we just keep doing what we're doing. More phone calls. Just keep calling your state reps or emailing them. Not everyone wants to do phone calls. I called Mahila Place's office, and she actually said, or one of her staffers said, that they're getting people calling about DART like every day. I don't know how many of those people are you. I assume it's actually mostly not in this group. That's my assumption. Because most of you don't live in her district, from what I know. Yeah, I don't have all your addresses memorized. You do? Wow. So yeah, well, in the meantime, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. Just keep contacting them about this. We have actually a list. We have a list of there's like 13 representatives on there who we don't know what their stance is, and I kind of want to give them special focus. We'll get into that. Oh, yeah, another thing we're doing is meeting them. So this is Senator Nathan Johnson, and then this is David. So David met Nathan Johnson on Wednesday because there's some event he was having. Anyone remember way back when we were still worried about Dallas and we didn't know if it would be pro-DART or not? And there were all these budget meetings the city councils were hosting. So we all kind of did a divide and conquer approach where we each went to different city council members' budget meetings. Yeah, I think a lot of you actually went to them. Who are in this room, and then we would just ask them. We use that opportunity. We're doing that again, except for state reps instead of city council members. So anytime there's some event a representative is going to be present at, I want all of you to be on the lookout for it, and I want all of you to share it with us, or share it with me, or share it with any of the executives in the front row here, and just let us know, and we can find someone who will be able to come and talk about DART. So I think that's going to be one strategy we have. Not only did we talk to Senator Nathan Johnson this week, we also talked to Tony Rose and Vinton Jones this week. That was on Thursday. And, found out they're both pro-transit, so we just talked about DART with them. It was good. It was worthwhile. So we're going to keep doing that. I'll get back to you if we have time. So yeah, we do have like a list of people we're concerned about. We don't really know where they stand. Some of these people are probably just anti-DART. Others are like newly elected and we know nothing about them. So what I did, I'll talk about what I've been doing. I live in Bob Hall's district, Senate District 2. And I've probably gotten like 10 people to call his office because his office is responsive to phone calls. Not all offices are, by the way, but his office is responsive to phone calls. So I've gotten myself at least 10 people to call Bob Hall, and I call his office a lot to talk about this stuff. On top of that, so what I want is I want one person to take, or more, but at least one person to pick one person on this concern list and make it a point to get as many people as possible to send them emails or phone calls or whatever works. So yeah, we just need one person for each representative on this list. Are you raising your hand for?
Just a quick question. Does the person who contacts them need to be a resident of the district?
No, but I prefer someone who's like able to get a lot of people who are residents. Yeah, preferably like, because I know a lot of constituents in Bob Hall's district because I've got a lot of family in there and I was able to bug them into calling him. Not only that, we have a list. A lot of you have signed a list where we have your name and your state rep. We have that spreadsheet. So I was also going through that list and contacting everyone on there. So that was basically the strategy. I think there's 4 people on that list who like live in Bob Hall's district. Then I just reached out on social media and family or neighbors, my roommate. So yeah, if we could just have one person for each of these representatives who will do what I did to Bob Hall, to all of them, that would be great. Yes.
Because I know a bunch of people that have been because I'm on the edge of
Okay, he should be on the list then. I didn't. Yeah. HD 65. Can you? Yeah. Okay. And so there's a lot of questions about this, and I do want to answer questions about this because I do think it's really probably going to be one of the most important things we're doing. So, Shyam? Yes, he was.
Wouldn't we have to wait until about early January before we?
Yeah. Good question. They don't get their offices until January, but there still might be a way to contact them before January. They might have it on their website. Yeah, on their campaign website, there might be contacts. Okay. How much is left? Okay, yeah. There's not much left. So I think we have time for a few more questions, right? Okay. I'm gonna go with Ara first.
Are these pro-transit state reps mostly Democrats, or there's some Republicans?
So I'll put it this way. We are a nonpartisan group, but we've gotten a much easier time. We've had a much easier time getting responses from people who are a part of the Democrat Party. And every person on this list does happen to be a Republican. I don't know where they stand. So they could be pro-transit. They could be with us. So one of our members talked about Morgan Meyer, and he seemed to be kind of leaning towards Dart. I think it's a staffer, but we don't really know. So, yeah, that's just the reality of it. I mean, I do want to get their position on this issue. And I don't want to assume just because they're Democrat or they're Republican that they're pro-transit or anti-transit. It's more nuanced than that. But yeah, Garrett.
Not a question, not a question, just from my own lobbying experience with other groups. You absolutely can and should contact someone who is newly elected but hasn't taken their seat yet. There's no reason not to, as long as you're respectful. They are going to be the person who is going to be making these decisions. If you can reach out on social media, if you can contact them through their campaign website, there's nothing wrong with that. You should do it.
Yeah, so the new elected people on the list are Katrina Pearson. She's in my district actually, and Brent Hagenbush. And there might be more, but
So I'm just so happen to be meeting 3 other representatives like later today. So
who are they?
yeah, some coincidence. Rodriguez Ramos, Bowers, and John Bryant.
Okay,
Have y'all contacted them?
John Bryan's pro Dart.
Okay.
He's good.
Okay.
I'm sure the other two are as well, but
All right.
Bowers is too. Okay, yeah, but still talk to them about it. There's no harm. The more people that's talk about Dart with them, the better.
So like, and a follow-up question: is there like a Google sheet or something that keeps track of?
Yes,
Okay.
and I update it whenever. I wanted to actually ask the room, does anyone know if any of these people are or aren't pro Dart, like for sure? Like, oh, you do? All right.
I can assure you that Angie Button is still on our side. And she's 100% behind what we're doing.
So has she commented on this particular sales tax issue?
This particular issue yet, but we can encourage her to do so and work with the people because she is a good public transit advocate.
Okay.
A Republican.
That's really good. That's awesome. So, we're having a hard time talking, like getting in contact with Angie Chen Button's staff. I was told that could be because she was in a tough election. So that's good. Really fun. Yeah. Chris?
Trina Pearson was formerly a Dart Citizen Advisory Committee member.
Really?
Years ago, yes.
Really?
Don't know what her current.
This is
status
Katrina Pearson?
Yes, absolutely. She ran against Pete Sessions when she was still on our committee. Okay, it was years ago. This is years ago, but it's the same person. So, but I have no idea whether she is still pro-transit.
Interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that. So does anyone else know where anyone on this list might stand? Okay. Can we go to then Garrett, then Cheyenne?
Do we have sample verbiage posted in here, like what was on the advocacy network last month? Can we get that like pinned in Discord or something?
Like sample things, like ask them.
Yeah, just a starting point, so we're not starting with a blank
Yeah.
email window.
Is there anyone in particular you want to take responsibility for right now, or just in general?
Just in general.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll do that. So yeah, I'll probably post these names and get people who are willing to, do what I did for Bob Hall, but for all of these people. I get it.
Yeah, so one other suggestion, when you call or email these elected officials, something that you totally can and should do is ask a question like, hey, so what is the temperature in the room? Have you heard anybody else talking about this? Or do you have relationships with any of these people on this list? Do you know what their position is? Do you feel like you can influence them? Do you feel like you can have that conversation? You can ask, you can network through your elected official and ask that question and make suggestions that, hey, could you reach out to Tan Parker and make sure that they're on board with protecting Dart? Can you reach out to Jeff Leach and see what his position is? That's a thing that you can do, especially if you build that relationship with your elected official.
Yeah, that's good advice. Garrett knows what he's doing. He's really good at this. All right, Ryan. Yeah, and we're wrapping up after this.
So based off what I've seen, it seems like not Drew Springer, Brent Hagenbush seems pretty he seems not oriented towards transit.
His district is mostly like outside of the Dart service area.
Yeah, it is, especially for school. But real quick,
Oh, yeah.
real quick, sometime later, could I give what's helped me while I was canvassing?
If we get back to that, yes. If we get back to that topic, yes. Which we might, I'm not sure. But I think we're gonna wrap this up now. Here's the district maps in case anyone doesn't know. This is where everyone is. I just did house districts. I probably should have done Senate too, oh well. I've said raise your hand if you're interested. I don't want to put everyone on the spot. But well, if you do want to do this and like help me out because I can't do it for everyone, yeah, just let me know. I'll be posting this on GroupMe. You can even send me a message right now. I think most people in this room know how to contact me. But yeah, just be the person who gets a lot of people to bug these people or to respectfully bug them. Okay. Go for it. Yes, yeah, go for it.
We are. Thank you. Yeah, if anybody's sleeping during this meeting, he will be kicked out. Do not tolerate that. Okay, so my turn. So regarding the vice president's reports, I'm looking for some help regarding engaging local unions and other kind of advocacy orgs. I think coalitions are a great idea in theory, but I have no clue what I'm doing there, and I don't speak labor. So I know a couple of you guys are in unions or know somebody who is in one. Would love to talk with you more in the coming weeks about how we can chat. If you have some thoughts, see me after class or DM me on the Discord or GroupMe. I'll be happy to learn from you guys and see what we can do about contacting them. Next thing. So I've been kind of going off ever since the election about how we should all run for local positions in our towns and really just kind of like swarm and take over everything because I'm sick of this crap as it were. So I have put together a short document that will have links to everyone's, like most of the major cities, especially in the Dart service areas, boards, commissions, kind of info page on the town website, as well as some general tips I've learned from getting there. I will distribute that on GroupMe and Discord, or if you need it, just again, come talk to me after class. So again, this supplements kind of our ongoing activities with data. The stuff we're doing here is really important and, really effective at getting the message around. But there's only so much directly lobbying, potentially hostile to transit representatives can do. And there's a lot of things you can do that can be friendly to transit and housing at the local levels. For example, in Addison, at least, the Planning and Zoning Commission is like the first line of defense, so to speak, when it comes to approving projects and developments, and it's very similar in others. So you get decision-making power on what goes to council for approval. This puts you at a very crucial position as far as, housing, transit centers, et cetera, within the town. And my current membership in the Addison Comp Plan Committee has shifted the window of like discussion for like 30 years of planning into more transit and housing oriented topics. And the fact that I'm there and kind of like lowering the average age of the room down by 10, 15 years has really, it's been very engaging and very influential on what the town is trying to do in the next 20 to 30 years. Now, in my opinion, it seems like Addison is a bit more receptive to feedback in general to its citizens than some of the other towns, Plano. But again, so just consider that as you go forward, but wherever you want to join, it can make a huge difference. So that resource guide will be shared, and please contact me about that. I've got some experience running on councils and boards. So anyways, one last thing, Mary, Rohan, and I are discussing alternative content and engagement strategies. If you're interested in that and know how to make like memes, we would really appreciate the help because apparently that's all that matters. So if you're funny, you win. Okay, Any quick questions?
Just a quick comment.
Yeah.
Even if you can't get on the, like zoning board. Okay. Even if you can't get on your, planning and zoning board, get on any board you can, because it gives you a closer connection to the people on your city council or your mayor. You know, and you can make friends with people with different boards, or you might be surprised what kind of power you do find on something simple like keep Addison beautiful board or whatever. Anyway.
Okay, so that does it for my report. Or right at about 2 o'clock, Connor, I wanted to ask you, do we jump straight into Nadine's work just so we're on time, and then we can finish reports after she's done?
Well, finish your report.
Oh, I'm all done. Yeah,
And I think that's what.
because we've got Evan and such next, but
Evan on the call. He was gonna join the room.
Evan, if you can hear us.
I am. Can you hear me online? Looks like I saw some movement up there. All right. I'll be quick, so this way we can kind of run through the.
You may need to figure out your mic.
yeah, your audio, we can't hear you. It's just a little odd.
Turn down.
Okay, Evan, just hit me when you want to go to the next slide, okay?
Okay, perfect. So just a real quick overview of what we did in the last month. So our main goals were to start to foster some of those positive relationships with our local and state government officials. Connor's main goal was working on the state reps. So as we saw earlier in his presentation, there was a push to meet with some local House district representatives. Another goal was to start developing and publish an initial op-ed for the Dallas Morning News. Unfortunately, that wasn't quite hit for this meeting, but that we'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. And in addition to that, go back one slide real quick. Appreciate it. And also, some of our last two goals was to start meeting with the state representatives, get our faces in front of them with local constituents, and then finally monitor for potential anti-DART legislation as part of the next legislative session. All right, next slide. As was highlighted earlier, we did meet with Tony Rose, Representative Tony Rose and Benton Jones from House Districts 110 and 100. As Connor highlighted, they are pro-DART. They did inform us that that there is a likelihood of them still of a Representative Matt Shaheen to still push for that legislation this session. But it seems like the priority still remains school vouchers going into this next session. And then also, as of last night, we've still been monitoring that legislation, and currently there is no attempt to tackle the penny filed yet. Also, we are working the op-ed, just highlighting an initial basic public message of DART support, and so that will be published to the Media and Government Relations Subcommittee within or by Thanksgiving. So if you would like to be a reviewer or support that effort, please join the GroupMe or reach out to me directly, and we'll see about getting included. Next slide. So we have identified some challenges for the next couple of months. So we are a nonpartisan organization, but as we've seen in some of the reps of concern, there are hardline, more anti-transit individuals, and they've increased their majority in the state legislature. We've also seen at the federal level that there is most likely a shift away from federal support of transit, like what we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act or the American Recovery Act or so on. And this can be seen in some policy agenda items such as Project 2025. We have started some new networking opportunities with Star Transit. We believe that a much larger coalition of support between Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, their metros, we believe that we could still support bipartisan support in preventing an attack on the DART penny. Next slide. I believe this next one is my last one. So we will continue to monitor. If that is filed, keep a lookout on the GroupMe in the Discord or the subreddit. We'll post there. there's some potential plans to discuss or to travel to Austin, discuss with the Texas House Committee on Transportation. That was discussed with Tony Rose at the fundraising on Thursday, and then also to release the op-ed for committee review by the end of the month. And I think that is it for my slides.
Okay, just want to be clear, Nadine, you're not in a rush or anything, are you? Outstanding. Go ahead, go.
So, this is the Policy Chair Committee report, and basically, going over hours of meetings with city councils and the RTC. I'll give you guys a rundown of what we have gleaned from those meetings. So on October 17th, the RTC, the Regional Transportation Council, which is part of the COG, they met to discuss their legislative program, and there was about an hour-long discussion about the line item, protect existing transportation authority dedicated funding. Irving moved to strike it out from the legislative priorities list. My town, my city, Carrollton, our great mayor, seconded it, but his reasoning was a little different. He said it would. He said if you go full on to protect the existing transportation, basically he said it boxes them in and it limits them in their ability to negotiate and discuss with DART with what the problems that they have with DART. So they went back and forth for about an hour. Dallas members of the RTC, very strongly defended DART. And a compromise was reached. Basically, this line stays, and it's contingent on the member cities who filed the resolutions to defund DART. It depends on they basically have homework to do. They have to meet with DART. They have to discuss. They have to basically come to an agreement on how to fix the issues that they are seeing with DART. And they have a deadline of February of 2025, which is just about when they decide on a speaker over in the legislature. And if that's not completed by then, I believe what they said was they'll strike that line item out from the legislative agenda for the RTC. And instead, they'll just go as what the Transit 2.0 recommendations are. And I do not believe there has been any public release of Transit 2.0 recommendations for funding. You can correct me on that. Sometimes I miss things. There's a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, so that could be good, that could be bad. We don't quite know. And going through the city council meetings, went through Farmers Branch on October 22nd. They didn't particularly talk about DART in their legislative agenda. They are more concerned with home rule, which also, thinking on it, they could be convinced that if they keep going with the legislature going after public transit in that area, it erodes home rule. So if they're really concerned with home rule, the argument could be made that, well, why are you letting the legislature dictate how you're gonna, do transit, right? Plano council meeting, they had apparently on October 28th, there was a Plano council meeting, and going through that meeting, we found out that there was a meeting with the 6 cities that passed the defund resolution alongside Addison with DART and I don't know if with DART, but with Michael Morris, which is the transportation head of RTC, and they are drafting a letter to DART to express their wants and needs that they want from from the authority. And Plano has 3 things they wanted to add to the letter. One is their general mobility program, which is basically the ability to take 25% out of that DART tax to use in accordance to Chapter 452, but that also includes roads. They also want an a la carte option for DART. So basically, if someone wants to just have GoLink and paratransit, they can just take those and use those. If they just want rail, they can do that. If they just want buses, do that. So they want some kind of, they just want a menu to choose from instead of an all-in-one package with 1 cent. And they also want a circulator bus going around Legacy. So those are their 3 wants and needs from DART. Addison didn't really have anything, but they had a town hall where they said Silverline's great. We're gonna plan around Silverline. They have a bike trail going to Silverline that they're planning. You probably know all about that, Tyler. So Silverline seems to be the focus of all their transit plans from the going into the future. So Addison's good from what I can see. Yeah. So Irving, November 7th, they had a legislative update. They didn't have DART as a line item because they still see it as influx. I guess they're still trying to figure things out. The legislative program is finalized on the 12th of December. Maybe they'll add it by then. I don't know. So it's something that we need to take a look, keep an eye on. Oh, that was next slide, huh? I'm a paper guy, sorry. So, going to the Texas legislature, the 89th. Oh, okay. Good. So you all know bills are filing. As Connor said, we're F5ing. I have a spreadsheet of transit relevant bills. There's only about 6 of them in that spreadsheet right now. I shared them on Discord. I'll share them. Maybe we can have a QR code in the next meeting or something like that to track them. But I'll keep tabs on transit related bills and just keep updating that spreadsheet so everyone can look at it. I'll have a notes section and I'll probably put in a progress section. You know, right now it's filed. When it goes into committee, I'll update that, see where it goes from there. December 6th, the GOP caucus meets. They'll set their agendas. They'll elect their House leader and speaker. Like Evan said, there's new GOP freshmen coming in, 26 of them. 11 of them directly owe Greg Abbott because Greg Abbott endorsed him during the primary, so they will do whatever he wants. That's what I'm getting from here. Dave Phelan is on Greg Abbott's hit list because of school vouchers. Because vouchers failed last time, Greg Abbott holds a grudge. So he actually had someone primary Dave Phelan, and he had a knockdown, drag out fight for the primary, but he won in the end. But he's going to use his influence to try to get Dave Phelan out of there from the speaker role. Now, what that means is that there's a long-standing tradition in the Texas House where the speaker, regardless of what party they are, they will have opposing parties be chairs of committees, be leaders, be able to do stuff in the House. And if they get a hardliner in the speaker position, they might do away with that tradition. So you would not have anyone from the Democratic side be able to really raise a voice in a leadership position. So that's pretty much it for me.
Oh, it is the last slide. Okay, outstanding. We have 2 more chairs. Mary, you covered a lot of your stuff at the beginning. Do you have anything else? Rohan, you have anything you want to report? Yeah, come on up. Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Rohan. I'm the social media chair, and I just wanted to comment on a few of our milestones that we reached. We just crossed $500 on the Instagram, and since our account started, we've reached over 6,500 accounts, and most of them are non-followers. So that is great. The one post that we did make about the fair, about some of the what's it called, the anti-dart council members, and they have no plan for serving fair demand. And so we had made a post about that. That's our most liked post. And so we were thinking we wanted more of that strategy to be a little bit more forward towards people, towards anti-dart council members who have no plans for satiating these demands. We have lots of ideas. We have ideas about like replying and commenting to people on Twitter who are posting about dart, more posts like that, informational bite-sized reels about some of the new legislature things that have been passing, that are currently being passed, memes also for the youth. We want to grow our committee. We want to post more often, but I can't do this all alone. I need help, especially in this current time with more bills currently being passed. Good media presence is a good idea. So I'm calling on anyone who's interested, who's good with graphics, who likes to post reels and stuff on Instagram and other social media, or who just likes memes and who's just as funny, can reach out, info@ridewithdare.org. Just let me know if you would like to help. Thank you very much.
Okay, for everyone here and online, this concludes officer reports. So again, we'll table any questions or additional statements till the end. I think it looks like we're going to have some room. But at this point, we'd like to welcome Nadine Lee to the front to give a short presentation and answer some questions.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me to come speak to you. I really, this is a privilege for me. I don't usually get to talk to friendly crowds. And those of you who don't know Enrique McGregor, he's one of our board members representing Dallas and Cockrell Hill. Yes. It's such a delight to work with Director McGregor, and I'm really glad for him to be here and support both me and all of you. So I have some slides prepared, but I'm not really going to use them. I feel like I really just kind of want to talk to you because I think there's a lot. I know you have a lot of questions, so I want to leave enough time for questions. How much time do we have, by the way? It's been a lot. My alarm's going to go off at 4 when I have to leave, but but anyway, I just wanted to first walk you through kind of what we're doing at DART in the interest of developing a better relationship with all of you as our writers, and I want to then talk a little bit about of course, the sales tax resolution that you all are following and tracking, and kind of what's at stake. And then we'll talk a little bit about kind of what we would love for you to do. Even though you guys are very organized, I have to say, like, just sitting in on all your committee reports, I'm really, really impressed at how much you all know, because you know as much as I know at this point. And I mean, it really speaks to the work that you have all done. This is a grassroots advocacy organization, and I do want to tell you just how much it means to me and all the staff, and of course, the DART board members who are in our court. It means so much to us to know that the writers have organized and come together to advocate for yourselves, and know that we, the DART staff, really want the same things that you do. That's been the primary thing that we've been working on the last 3 years. I got here in 2021. And since I got here, it's been such a focus on the customer. It's been so important to us. I always tell people that what we're trying to do at DART is we're trying to cultivate a long-term relationship with our customers. I mean, a lifelong relationship, right? We want you all to enjoy your rides on DART. We want you to think of us all the time when you need to travel anywhere in this region. And we want to be able to provide those rides for you and do it consistently so that you can have the confidence that we're there for you. And that's hard to do, but that's my job, not yours. So just having you all advocate for yourselves and come and talk at the board meetings and speak up about what's really right, about the things we're doing right and also the things that we do wrong. I mean, it's important for us to hear that because I'm not sure that the riders have ever had this level of a voice before. And it makes me feel good, even though the circumstances by which you formed were not good. You know, at least you guys have come together and your strategy and your organization and just your constant vigilance is very much appreciated. I know that when you all speak at the board meetings, sometimes I want to stand up and cheer. Sometimes I want to, you know, I have to try not to look too happy about it sometimes, but I also sometimes want to cry because you guys have great stories about you and your families who rely on DART. So please keep that up because we are on a good path. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. And I don't have paper. I have my phone because I took some notes. So I'll go down a few slides in a few minutes because I do want to share with you our Point B strategic plan video. By the way, I'm sweating. It's really hot here. So let me just start by talking about our strategic plan because I think it's really important for you all to get a good handle on where we are trying to take DART on your behalf. And so for those of you who have followed the strategic planning process, we have a new strategic plan called Point B. Point B was approved by the board in June of this year, and it really talks about how we DART want to leverage ourselves as a strategic economic and mobility asset for this region. And that sounds all wonky and everything, and I know you guys are wonks too, but the point here is that what distinguishes the cities in our service area from the ones that are not in our service area is that they have DART. And as we grow as a region, as you know, 4 million people come to this region over the next 20 years, you know, we can't build ourselves out of this problem. We already have crazy traffic congestion right now. And it's really important for us to make sure that we provide some additional travel capacity through transit, because that's the way we'll provide mobility for people without having to build wider and wider streets and highways. And you know, I think all of you understand that having a high quality of life is super important, especially in North Texas, because the highway system is ginormous. I mean, I came here from Los Angeles where there are also ginormous highways, but there's also 10 million people there, right? Just in the LA County, not to mention the 10 million people who are in Orange County. So many more people, so much higher density. And here we just seem to think that it's okay to keep building, right? I mean, you know, we're moving closer and closer to the Oklahoma border. People are having to travel farther and farther to get affordable housing and things like that. And from my perspective, that's not the way I want to live. You know, I particularly like to go to places in Europe and in Asia where everything is compact. And I was just in Singapore last week where we were talking about the Singapore Land Transport Authority's new 2040 master plan. And in it, they talk about the 45-minute city and the 20-minute town. And the 45-minute city is basically the concept of making sure that you can get to your place of work within a 45-minute transit ride. And that's, you know, Singapore's pretty small, but 45 minutes on transit, you know, is pretty good. That would be amazing here, right? Because some of our rides take, you know, an hour. The 20-minute town concept is the idea that you can have within a 20-minute walk, roll, maybe transit ride, within that 20 minutes from your home, you can access all of the services and amenities that you need to have a great life. And so when you think about that concept, if we could apply it to an area like North Texas, we could really reduce the demand on our streets and highways and increase the use of transit, right? Because, you know, we just don't have the capacity to keep people moving. And all these people are like, well, we need to go to the future of autonomous and all that stuff. And I'm like, we don't have enough space for zero or for single occupant vehicles. So how can we possibly have space for zero occupant vehicles, you know? And so the thing that we always talk about in UITP, which is the International Association for Public Transport Agencies, the thing we always talk about is, you know, an electric vehicle traffic jam is still a traffic jam. An autonomous vehicle traffic jam is still a traffic jam. An Uber traffic jam is still an Uber traffic jam, you know? So the point here is to share rides and increase mobility for everyone. So with that backdrop, let me talk a little bit about this concept of being a strategic economic and mobility asset. So our strategic plan has 6 goals in it, and they're organized in 3 different audiences. The first one is for our workforce and for our organization, and it's a lot about how we operate as an organization. How are we removing obstacles for our staff to do their best work? That's really important because one of the talking points that you've heard from a lot of people is DART is just so inefficient. And the truth is that we're not really as inefficient as people might like to say we are. We actually have in my FY25 goals an organizational assessment that talks about what we're going to stop doing in order to do more of other things. And so we're trying to reprogram and reallocate resources according to the things that we really want to achieve as an organization, and to stop spending money and time on the things that are not really that relevant anymore. So we're working on that piece. We also want to really inspire our workforce because we've got a great workforce. I don't know if you've been out on the system and talked to the people who are working. They're so excited to serve all of you. They really care about the riders, and to the point that, they'll, if they see somebody, running towards the bus who's running a little bit late, who they know, they'll hold up, just for a few seconds. I know they're not supposed to, but but they do. It's really important to make that connection for people. And so they care about all of you and they want to do a good job. And in fact, the president of the ATU was just in my office yesterday saying to me, like, we support you, we've got your back. I hope that, I hope that happens when we get to our negotiations on things, but he's been wonderful. And so he wants to do the right thing as well. So what we want to do is we want to inspire our workforce to rise to the occasion and find ways to contribute to the outcomes we're trying to achieve. And that's something that is up to me and our executive team. Our executive team we refer to as the leadership roundtable because we are all equals and we all try to work really hard together and communicate a lot. And so, so that's kind of the workforce and the governance piece of things, is that we're trying to empower our staff. We're trying to have them rise to the level of being contributors to our goals. And really, a lot of that is just people like me getting out of their way, because they're all very creative, and I don't need to tell them how to do their jobs. They know how to do it. The second bucket for our goals is about you all, the customers. Really trying to figure out how we improve the quality of our services and also the connectivity of the services, increasing access, increasing ease and convenience for riding DART. I think all of you know that we could be providing way more service than we have today, and it's just a matter of personnel resources and money, right? Which is one of the reasons why this threat to our sales tax is significant. And so we are really focused on how we're going to continue to increase the level of service for all of you. And it's something that we care about. The quality piece is important because we know that things like security, cleanliness, and reliability are really important. Those are the base level things, the fundamental things that we really need to be doing for everybody. And we've been working on that really, really hard over the last 3 years. And I'll tell you that our 2024 customer satisfaction survey results just came out. And since 2022, in 2022, we were at 58% overall customer satisfaction. We're now at 72%. And that is a huge increase. Thank you. That's the DART team, right? The DART team has been doing amazing work. And again, it's because they care about all of you. So, so the quality piece is really important. We've focused on security, cleanliness, and reliability. We've been focusing on ways to surprise and delight our customers. We do have something hopefully coming in early 2025 to delight all of you. I can't announce it exactly right now, but I'm going to give you that teaser so that you can be watching for it. But we were trying to find ways that we can help make your journey easier on DART. And so there's a lot that we're trying to do there. We have a lot of programs that we're trying to implement in order to improve that connectivity for our services. A lot of that has to do with, how are we repairing everything, our equipment, our infrastructure. We have a big program called DART Transform. Some of you may be familiar with it. That's not about new construction, right? That's not about the Silver Line. The Silver Line's its own thing. But the Transform program is what we call system modernization. So it's looking at our assets and looking at how they operate and how to maintain them in such a way that we can count on them for longer. So we have significant investments coming into our system, into our infrastructure. We're going to be buying new buses. We're going to be buying new light rail vehicles. light rail vehicles are about 30 years old. Buses are probably, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 15 years old at this point. And so it's time to replace them so that we have the new technology, and so we have, much more comfort for all of you. When we do the light rail piece, I know we're going to be doing some mock-ups and inviting our writers to come in and take a look at what we have planned, so you can provide us some input into that. So far, the renderings I've seen are pretty exciting. They're really different from what you guys have today, but we're excited about that. And so we're trying to, really improve, kind of just the general overall look and feel of Dart. Because Dart's, we're 41 years old, so, we need a little bit of an upgrade. And then on the connectivity side of things, and speed and reliability side of things, we have a program called CORE, which is Corridor Optimization and Rider Experience. And that program is really about improving speed and reliability of all of our bus services. That's a bus-focused effort. And so we have, as part of CORE, also a very programmatic look at our bus stops and the amenities at our bus stops. You may be aware that we have some prototype shelters, new shelters that were designed by some students in the architectural school at University of Texas, Arlington. And those shelters are out there for you all to go check out and provide us feedback, because we've worked with a shelter manufacturer to see if we could manufacture this new design and come up with something that could become the standard for Dart. And we have, these are modular, so we can make them smaller or bigger depending on, the type of stop that we have. So we can send you, I think maybe after this meeting, we'll make sure we send out to the group the locations of those shelters, so you guys can go check them out. Okay. And then in addition to the bus stop piece, the CORE program also looks at where we can make improvements to speed and reliability by working with our cities to provide things like queue jumps or bus lanes or transit signal priority, to really give the buses that travel time advantage that we don't really have today. And so that will actually help us, if we can get those improvements made, that'll actually help us turn things around on our routes a little bit faster, which frees up additional capacity for us to reinvest in more service. And so, all these little tiny tweaks are really going to add up to a lot in the future. In addition to that, we also have our plans for our phase 2 of our new bus network. When we did our bus network redesign 2 years ago, we completely reconfigured our network and made it more of a grid system rather than just a feeder service. So what we're trying to do is build off of that success and try to make, try to create more higher frequency routes for you, and also add in routes that will provide more access for all of you. So we're just incrementally trying to make everything better for you. And I wish it took less time than it does. But of course, we always have to worry about funding and personnel and things like that. But what we're trying to do through Point B and through all these other programs is to tell you what you should be expecting from us, so that you all can hold us accountable, right? Like, I want you all to say, hey, I thought you were going to do these core programs in whatever number of years. What happened to them? And then I would have to say, okay, well, we couldn't afford it this year, but we're trying to do X, Y, and Z next year. And so it's, this is a communication tool for us, so that you know what to expect from us, and that you can expect that we actually are trying to make improvements for you. In addition to that, our third bucket for our goals is really talking about our communities and building communities through our transit investments. Part of that is what we call fantastic spaces. So working on DART-owned assets, whether it's parking lots at some of our rail stations or some of our bus transfer centers, trying to find ways to activate that space and reimagine that space, so that it's not just an empty surface lot that just sits there empty most of the time, but to find ways to bring, maybe bring new development there, so that you have some retail there, maybe some residential, or maybe or maybe you have a park, that has festivals and things like that that are easily accessible by transit. So we have all kinds of ideas about what we could do. And then, our program for Fantastic Spaces is going to be much more organized and strategic, so that we can generate interest from the development community to come in and invest with us as partners. So there's all kinds of stuff happening. part of this is saying, the third bucket is saying we can't do everything alone, but we need partners. We need people like you. We need so you are our stakeholders and our customers. We also need to work with our cities because cities also have some synergy in helping us define what the future of our spaces looks like because it is in their city and it is part of the community. And so we want to work together with everyone to make sure things happen. Let me make sure that I didn't go too far off script here, even though I don't really have a script. So those community goals are really important. I think, we're trying to create more access for everyone and connectivity for everyone and serve everyone well. Again, this is about creating that lifelong relationship with all of you. I tell people all the time that at the end of the day, I want people to love DART. I want people to love transit. And I want to make sure that you guys stick with us for life because we're a good partner. I call it a courtship. I've been saying that for a long time, but that's really important because it is a courtship, right? Like sometimes in a relationship, you're really great, everything's good, and then sometimes you stumble a bit, and then you have to come back and say, hey, that wasn't so good. So there are going to be times when we kind of fall short of expectations, but that doesn't mean we don't want to be in this relationship. So let me go to the video here. So I don't know how to do this. Maybe I'm hitting the wrong button. How do I advance this? Oh, it's down there. I was hitting the arrow buttons. Okay. So I'm going to show you a video from our strategic plan. Some of you may have seen this before, but we spent so much time on it that I just really want to play it again. So here we go. Maybe I have to hit play or something. Oh, maybe.
For over 40 years, Dallas Area Rapid Transit has connected millions of people to jobs, education, healthcare, entertainment, and more. As North Texas grows, DART is committed to creating best-in-class mobility experiences that continue to help our communities connect and flourish. Not only for today, but for the future. Here's our plan. We'll make transit fast, frequent, and easier to use. Expanded mobility choices and ease of access will inspire more people to think of DART first for their mobility needs. We'll do this in collaboration with our cities so transit supports their own city goals. DART cares about our communities. We want to add value to the areas we serve. From better transit stops to major developments, we'll make rider experiences safe, welcoming, uplifting, and inspiring, while creating a first-in-mind perception of DART. The foundation of any agency's success is its people. DART's commitment to safety, security, reliability, and optimal operations is only possible with our professional, dedicated employees. That's why we're updating and streamlining our processes, empowering our employees, and creating a culture where their growth potential can be realized. Our vision includes increased public access to DART, greater business growth, and increased sustainability. The success of our plan depends on collaborative relationships with stakeholders who share the same goals. We're ready to work together and explore new ways to ensure a prosperous future for North Texas. Where DART goes, economic opportunities happen. We're excited to take you on this journey. Let's go.
Okay, I think I'm just going to leave the DART logo up there because it's such a great end to that video. So that's, that is in 2 minutes our strategic plan. And so we hope that that helps you have a clear picture of where we're trying to go as an organization. This is important because this is a 10-year plan. And so it'd be nice if we didn't get stuck, getting cut like in our first year of the 10-year plan. So I do want to talk a little bit about the sales tax resolutions because I feel like our strategic plan is a great outlook for the future. And I think what's at risk here is our ability to implement this plan. I am a big advocate for having a strategy and working to strategy. And so obviously sometimes you have to deviate a little bit from your strategy, but the whole point of having a strategic plan is to implement it. And because I know that if we are successful at implementing it, it's going to change the way people use transit here in our region. So, so the sales tax resolutions that were passed by the 6 cities, Obviously, what we're hearing from them is that it was very symbolic. It was, in some ways a cry for help or a cry for attention. We are giving attention to our cities. And I want to say that we're not only giving attention to the cities that passed resolutions, because I think it's incredibly important to make sure that we don't forget the cities that did not pass resolutions, right? Because they're the silent ones, and I think people can easily take them for granted. But the truth is that they're the silent supporters, and we need to make sure that they're taken care of too. So we are spending some time, the chair, Gary Slagle, along with me and one of our directors, Mark Enoch, who represents Rowlett and Garland, we're going out to every one of our service area cities, and we're talking to them about what their challenges are, what it is that they need for their city, because it's different, right, from every city. I don't know to what extent you all compare what you're hearing from the different cities. Some of the messaging is very consistent, but some of the messaging is not consistent. So every city has a different need and a different ask, and that's okay. From a regional perspective, I think we have provided the connectivity that I think people are looking for, and we can build off of that. But I think at a more micro level, at the local level, we have not spent as much time understanding each city's needs from a local transportation perspective. So some people are saying, we want more microtransit, less bus. I think what I'm hearing from them is really we need some microtransit or circulator service for very localized areas to help connect people. And it's not that they don't want buses at all, but they understand that buses are more of that regional connector. It's a higher capacity, just like rail is higher capacity, higher speed. But on a local level, if we go back to that 20-minute town concept, the circulator is probably a better offering for them in that particular context. And so we're working on those concepts with them right now. I think that it's important for you all to know that part of the exercise right now is we're working on what we refer to as our area planning process. And what that is it's taking really each individual city and looking within the city boundaries and looking at their future developments that are coming online, say in the next 5 to 20 years, and figuring out what we think the travel demand might be in those areas, and looking at each of the individual developments and talking to our cities about how they want people interacting with that space. So it's really important when you're creating a new development to understand, where do you want your parking? Where do you want buses or circulators or trains or whatever to come through this area? And how do you want to account for or provide for pedestrian access in this area? If you have a full city block that you're developing, you don't necessarily, some people may not necessarily want a bus going right through the middle, but they might want it at the perimeter so that people can get off the bus and then walk the rest of the way. So we're working with them to do that planning and to do that visioning so that we can all talk about, okay, what does this mean for the future of transit in your area, and how can we adapt our services as we continue to implement some of these developments, so that we are helping add capacity, again, people movement capacity to and from these areas without having to have people drive. Because if we could limit the amount of parking that they need to provide, then they actually have more developable land. So the area plans are a big part of what we're trying to work on with the cities. Economic development partnerships, one of the probably the main driver behind these sales tax resolutions is that our cities have been capped by the state in terms of how much sales tax they can collect. And in this case of our service area cities, part of the total taxing capacity that they have is taken up by money that goes to DART. And that was a decision that was made a long time ago. A lot of our city managers inherited that. So we understand that their taxing capacity is limited. But what we need to do as DART is figure out how we partner and leverage, our land assets or some of our investments from a transportation perspective to make sure that their developments become very, very viable and very attractive for the development community. So we want to leverage DART as a partnership to try to attract that development. But our hope is that people aren't just grabbing our money and putting it somewhere else. which is really sometimes what you kind of hear. So this is important to us. You know, I think at the end of the day, we want the same things. How we go about doing it is where we disagree, and that's really the crux of the issue right now. And so all the work that you all are doing is very helpful because it helps to focus people's attention on the things that matter. And so, and also the right way to do things, because we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, but, you know, we need to get people, you know, listening to us and understanding, you know, we need to listen to them too, but we need to come to agreement on how we're going to proceed and how we're going to move forward. My phone just went to sleep. So I think, you know, the main message that I want to leave you all with is that, you know, DART is doing our part to become an asset for this region and for our cities. For you all, again, I am really, really thrilled that you all are so vigilant in your advocacy of DART. And hopefully you understand that it's advocacy on your behalf as writers. As I was listening to the strategy that you all are implementing, I think you guys are on target. I think it's fantastic that you're staying on top of the state representatives. I will always encourage you to continue to speak up for yourselves, to stand up for what you all believe in. I think it's really important to think about doing this at the local level too, because a lot of these conversations are happening at the local level between me and the mayor and the city manager and our board members. The city council members have admitted to us that they've received a lot of calls from you, so you're getting their attention. And yeah, congratulations. Yeah. And so, I mean, give yourselves a pat on the back because that is a lot of hard work. The community organizing is, and we appreciate it because you know you guys are making the calls that we as staff can't really make. But definitely keeping that vigilance up. Definitely make your voice heard. And again, council members as well as board members. I say that, you know, knowing Enrique's here, but Enrique expects it. Definitely the state legislature. We can certainly help you if we hear of anything that's coming up at the state level. We can let you know. And then on the more like the super micro side of things, please, whenever you have questions about DART or something that we're doing, please call us. We're happy to give you all kinds of information about what we're doing, what something means. If you don't understand something, please call us. We're available because we know that you guys are helping us out. We just, you know, it's super important to make sure that you all have in your toolbox accurate information because there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people approve those resolutions based on misinformation. So I want to make sure that you all are armed with the correct information when you go out and talk to people. So again, anytime you have any questions, please, please, please call us. We've got a whole bunch. You can call any of the board members. You can call me. You can email me. And then, you know, the last thing is just, you know, I know that as organizers and advocates, sometimes it can be really intimidating to get up in front of a council or a board to speak. And I am really proud of the work you all are doing. I wish you all the courage in the world when you do get up to speak because, you know, I can't speak for the board members, but I am listening. I am listening and I am rooting for you when you get up to speak because I know how intimidating it is. I mean, I don't even like to speak in front of the board sometimes, but you know, please continue that because what you all are doing now will serve you well into the future because you never know when you're going to have to get up and speak to fight for what's right. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you have done for DART. And that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you. I know you have questions, so
We have other questions, but this was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. You've actually answered. We've been keeping a tally of like questions and stuff, and we've been making notes of what you've answered. So hopefully, we're not going to be asking too many repeat things like you just said that. But yeah, I think the hotline number, just because we had like about 4 or 5 people ask this, and so I've kind of merged it into one question. Is on a lot of people's minds is. What plans does DART have to share about how we're going to approach the FIFA World Cup that is coming up and what service we think, can provide to a place like Arlington that is not particularly friendly to transit?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll point to some work that I've been doing with UITP. That's the International Public Transport Organization that I mentioned earlier. So UITP has, they have been holding workshops. They've had 2 so far. We'll probably have a couple more that bring experts in from all over the world who have hosted FIFA World Cup, as well as the Olympics. And we're consulting with them to talk about what are the things we really need to prepare for. Michael Morris at Dr. Cog's in Denver, NCT Cog, North Central Texas Council of Governments. So Michael Morris is kind of leading the charge on the planning for the World Cup, and so he has crafted some strategies for using and leveraging the Trinity Railway Express, or TRE, for those of you who are familiar with that. The TRE as a major capacity ad for the World Cup passengers or spectators. Now, I'll tell you that when you have big events like World Cup or the Olympics, there are different networks. They have a network for VIPs, a network for the athletes, a network for the media. World Cup is not as organized as the Olympics. So what we're doing right now is we're working with Michael Morris, as well as Trinity Metro, and also UITP, to kind of look at what the demand's going to be for getting people to and from the stadium. And so it's challenging because when I think about capacity, you have to kind of look at the weakest link, right? The weakest link is how you're going to get people from the stadium to the Centerport station. So we know that each bus can only handle, I don't know, 60 or 80 passengers or something like that at crush capacity. So if you've got to fill a train that's going to carry 1,000 people, you're going to have, a lot of buses. I can't do the math in my head right now, but I think it's really important for us to be thinking about how many buses we really need to actually bridge that gap. Now, the TRE is not the only outlet. We actually just had a conversation with Michael Morris the other day about how we might be able to supplement this bus service by, instead of sending people to Centerport, we can actually have buses that fill up and immediately depart and head out on the HOV lanes on I-30 to get people out of there. There are also strategies with World Cup to have after game, like post game events. I think they have a parade for the winning team. They have, they can activate a lot of different activities so that it kind of holds people back and slows down the rush. But we know, DART knows from, experiences with the Texas OU game from year to year, that sometimes you don't get to control that. So you have to be prepared for the worst of the worst, right? Like everybody flowing out and trying to get to their trainer bus right after the game. I wish I had the picture from the Texas OU game this year, because we have this great photograph that's an aerial photo that shows like 100 buses lined up in front of Fair Park, and then a train, and then masses of people. I'll send the photo out to you all because it's a great picture. I think we might have posted it on social media, but it takes a lot of space to stage all those buses, and then on top of that, you have to have enough operators. We actually, one of the biggest challenges is that, while we have the World Cup games going on, we also are maintaining service for our regular customers, right? So our objective is to make sure that we don't undermine service for our regular customers while we have to provide service for the game. So there may be some additional contracts that have to go out in order to provide that additional capacity. That is the one part that makes it a little bit easier that it's in Arlington, is that, if we have to contract out additional service, like it's not something that's, we're not taking work away from people in our service area. So it's something that we're looking at right now. So that's probably not a specific enough answer to your question, but we are preparing for it, and we're running out of time.
All right, next question on my list. So is there a city either in the United States or globally that you view as kind of a peer to Dallas in terms of, when you look at a city that's like, this is the city that Dallas needs to be learning from, that DART needs to be learning from, what cities are you looking at?
Oh, well, so that's a great question. There's so many. I mean, when you say peer, I'll just explain to you what I think of it. Okay, thanks, Enrique. Bye, thank you. In terms of peer cities, I mean, cities of similar size, Portland, Denver, but those cities are also still more dense than the Dallas area. But when I think of peers that I aspire to be more like, I mean, I have lofty goals. So, I mean, I'm thinking London, Paris, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Taipei. I've been to all these places, and I'll tell you that I've gone to these places throughout my career for a variety of reasons, either sometimes for work or for personal reasons, just taking vacation. But every time I go overseas, I'm inspired to bring something back. And I've told people before that my travels internationally throughout my career are really what led me to DART. And that everything that we're doing at DART as it relates to the Point B strategic plan is a product of all of that experience. And so I'm trying to bring the world to DART in terms of best practices and how we should be doing transit here. So yeah, lots and lots of examples. Every place has a different example to follow. Vancouver, actually, I was in Vancouver in June. Vancouver, actually, if you were to stand on a rooftop in the central business district in Vancouver and look out on the horizon, you would see different pockets of high-rise development on the horizon, and those pockets of high-rise development you would think are other commercial districts, right? But they're actually other residential areas that grew up around their stations. And what they've done there is that they've allowed highest density around these stations. And so those stations have a lot of residential and then lots and lots of amenities nearby. So back to that 20-minute town concept. So they're not commercial areas. They're actually just residential. And so they do that. Paris, we were talking a little bit about the FIFA World Cup. I had a presentation from some folks in LA just in October. They had just been to Paris during the Olympics since LA is going to be the next host. And they were talking about how Paris, they carry like 12.5 million people a day, right? I'm like, oh, I would love to have that. So they carry 12.5 million people a day, but in the summertime when everyone goes on vacation in August, they actually only carry like 8.5 million people today, or 8.5 million people per day. So they have 4 million capacity that they could leverage for the Olympic travelers. And so it's pretty incredible. And they actually increased their fares during the Olympics because they were trying to manage the usage of the system during the Olympics by the locals. And so they increased the fares, which of course everyone who was visiting paid, but then they were able to kind of do some congestion pricing, to keep people from taking it and congesting the transit stations. By the way, Singapore for a long time, and I don't know if they still do this because it's post-pandemic, but before the pandemic, they were using pricing to try to keep people from always traveling during the peak of the peak. Hopefully you guys all understand my wonky terms, but what they would do is they would try to give discounts so that more people would ride in just the shoulders of the peak. So instead of riding at 7 in the morning, they could get people to ride at 8 in the morning for a lower price. So those are all things we don't need to worry about right now, but they're really interesting, like when you have that level of demand on your system, those are the kinds of things you can do.
All right, next question I've got here. So what areas or elements of the service area do you view as your top priorities as DART's building towards realizing your 10 by 10 vision?
All of them. I mean, so the 10 by 10 vision was really, it came out of my observation that we don't provide nearly enough service in our service area. And so when people complain that we don't have any riders on our buses, I'm like, well, of course, our buses don't always go where people want to go. It's not because the service is bad, it's because they don't need to go there. And we also don't make it convenient. So when I think about doing a 10 by 10, 10-minute access to 10-minute service, like that concept. And by the way, that came from Singapore. They wanted everybody to have access to a high frequency transit service within 10 minutes of where they live. And so, so 10 by 10, you know, for me is the goal. Like if we could provide for all of you access to a 10-minute service within a 10-minute walk of where you live, and you could easily transfer to get to a final destination, I mean, that would be incredible to me. And so I don't have a particular priority. I mean, it's just super hard to do. And you know, some of my board members got very excited about how much this was going to cost. And when I say excited, I don't mean excited.
All right, I've got a question here. What is DART's long-term vision for the partnership with the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority?
So, so that's a little bit complicated. So McKinney Avenue Transit Authority, obviously they provide the wonderful trolley on McKinney Avenue, and I think there are a lot of opportunities to partner with them. You know, I think DART has sort of been a little bit like arm's length in terms of, you know, getting too heavily involved in another service that we don't have funding for. But McKinney, I think, is growing enough that they need a little bit more support. And so you know, I think there's a good partnership there, and I think we really need to spend more time leveraging the trolley service. I think that, you know, I think that, you know, with the talk about improving streetcar through Dallas and making connections all the way through, and I'm looking right at Paula, I think there are some real opportunities to leverage streetcar, right? And when I say streetcar, I'm really talking about the trolley also. So I think I think we need to find a good partnership and a good funding structure for the trolley as well as the streetcar. But I do think that that has to happen. I mean, with MATA, I think it's a little bit easier because MATA is its own organization. The city is a different animal, right? The city of Dallas owns the Dallas streetcar, and that ownership, I think, has to be, you know, has to be leveraged, right? Because for all intents and purposes, DART is the operator of the Dallas streetcar, not the owner. And so, you know, and I hate to make that really bureaucratic distinction because you guys don't care, right? Like you don't care who owns it and operates it. But to me, it's like, okay, we have these different types of services. How do we leverage them all as part of the unified, holistic transportation system? But you know, the politics of the, you know, of the environment are who owns what and who pays for what. And I wish we lived in a world where everyone could say, you know what, we just want transportation to work for everybody. So you guys go duke it out, and you know, we'll fund it. That's always the crux of it. But we don't have enough funding or enough personnel to take care of everything. And you know, I think governance of transportation, particularly in the United States, but probably around the world, is not quite where it needs to be, given the fact that it's something that's so important and so vital to the well-being of the community and the residents. So.
How do you respond when people say that DFW is too spread out for good transit?
Well, it's definitely spread out. I mean, it's not too spread out for good transit. But again, it's, you know, I think there's always this pressure to be cost effective, but nobody really defines what cost effective is. But if you're in government, and you all hear this about DART all the time, oh, they're just not efficient. Okay, right? What's efficient, right? I mean, we can always be more efficient. Everybody can be more efficient. I can be more efficient in my own finances. So, you know, but I think that, you know, we have to want to be different than we are today. It doesn't really matter that we're pretty low density as long as we're okay with things taking a little longer, or some of the buses being kind of empty by the time they get to the end of the line. But if we want an alternative, then we have to decide that that's what we want to invest in. And there are a lot of things that, you know, there are a lot of asks out there for people's money. And so most people who have a car would say, I don't need transit. Why are we investing in transit? But people who don't have a car might say, I really need this. Otherwise, I can't work and I can't live. So, you know, to me, it's about the greater good. I know that's like sacrilege for some people in Texas, but
All right, so this one might be a little bit of a challenging question, but does DART have any initiatives planned to encourage the executive leadership team and board of directors in particular to use DART more?
Yeah, that is a great question. Actually, several of the board members recently were riding transit and were very happy at the experience. They rode unannounced, and our chair, just so you know, Chair Slagle rides as regularly as he can. Now, sometimes he can't actually. I mean, of course, he. Yeah, well, he did actually one time when he was trying to ride. It was, I think it was a bad weather day, and that, of course, that was one of the reasons he tried to ride. And of course, on the bad weather days, those are the days that we have a lot of delays. So unfortunately, it was not such a great experience that day. But he does, you know, they do. Some of them try to ride, or have been trying to ride recently. The executive leadership is trying to ride too. I mean, we don't have specific initiatives, but we talk about it all the time. And I was actually the other day, I had to go up to Plano for a meeting at 9 o'clock, and I was like, you know, I could try to drive, but I think it's going to be faster to take transit. So I just, you know, I took transit, and it was perfect.
So next here a question about the shuttles, in particular UTV shuttle, but I'll kind of expand it because DART has a bunch of shuttles. But what conditions would need to exist to make it possible for DART to bring full bus service to the current shuttles that are currently contracted out to Echo, specifically things like the 883, the 440, the 442?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't actually know the answer to that. Because my guess is that we had a partnership with UTD to implement more service, which speaks to like the value of having higher frequencies. And so, you know, if it's what I suspect, it's really a matter of money and labor resources. You know, we've been trying really hard not to. You know, not to expand our personnel, our staffing levels too quickly. But it's also really hard because, you know, from my vantage point, I know that we need more staff, right? But staff is an expensive endeavor. It's not that it's not worthwhile. It's just that, you know, it's very hard to justify to your board sometimes why you need new staff because they don't always understand what you're trying to accomplish. And we also don't have the systems in place to make the case the way we'd like to. Like if we had a really rigorous performance measurement program, we would be able to demonstrate how much more we could do for every, you know, new full-time equivalent. But yeah, I think it's an issue of staffing and labor, or staffing and financial resources. It may be less expensive for us to contract that out.
Next year, we've gotten a few questions about the possibility of bus rapid transit. I know that DART has made a few presentations to this on the past, but just what's kind of the long-term vision in terms of bringing bus rapid transit to DART?
Yeah, so that's part of the core program. The one that I mentioned earlier is, you know, we talked about speed and reliability, but we also, that's all like the precursor to bus rapid transit in our area. And so bus rapid transit, I think, is an interesting mode and concept because, you know, for those of you who know a little bit about my background, I implemented a bus rapid transit program in Denver before I left RTD, and it was a great experience because, you know, we really showed the power of the bus, right? And the bus often gets treated like the redheaded stepchild. No offense to anyone who's redheaded, or a stepchild for that matter. But I think it's important for us to understand, like, what is bus rapid transit trying to accomplish, right? And when you have constraints on your resources, what are the most impactful things that you could be doing to your bus system or for your bus system that would achieve some of the same goals? So usually when we're talking about bus rapid transit, people think about it in terms of trying to make it more like rail, right? So everybody automatically goes to, we have to have these glorious stations, we have to have all this, you know, all these, you know, bells and whistles. But in truth, the real attractive thing about rail is that it has an exclusive guideway. or it has an advantage, and it is equipped to deal with delay or to pass up, congestion or whatever it is. So if you start to look at the hierarchy of investments, like the investment for impact, I would love for us to be looking at our BRT corridors in the context of let's phase in the investments so that we get the speed and reliability pieces first, and then we start to invest more in the stops and stations and all those other amenities that make it better. Now, we're kind of doing both, right? So, I talked about the new shelters. We're already going to be doing that piece. The biggest shelters that we have in our program will go on the highest ridership corridors where we have higher frequencies, and all of the corridors that are most likely to become BRT in the future. But if you look at King County Metro in Seattle, they actually took very strategic steps to get their rapid ride in place. They didn't first brand the buses. They first started to improve the conditions on the streets so that they could actually move their buses through more quickly. And then eventually they got to the bus stops themselves. I think they did at some point brand the buses before they did the stops, but they didn't put in a lot of expensive infrastructure at the very beginning. They started with, giving the bus the advantage so that the bus riders could experience having a faster ride and a more reliable ride.
All right, next question here is what developments in transit technology, infrastructure, planning, what innovations get you most excited about the future of transit?
There's a lot. So AI is really scary, but also very exciting. I think AI can give us a little bit more information on how to plan for people's travel patterns, can help us respond in real time. I really think of technology as a tool and not the end, not the, end of everything that we're trying to do. Because I think, historically we, the transit industry, have used technology as an excuse to, buy a new shiny new object, right? Without thinking like, how could this actually help us do our jobs better? And if you notice, a lot of what we've been doing in the last 3 years at DART really hasn't had a lot to do with technology. It's been about, getting the basics down pat and making sure that we're delivering the basics well. So, so now that we're getting better, we have the opportunity to start looking at new technologies and incorporating those into our work. AI and, cameras and all that stuff that can help us, with video surveillance. It can help us, stay, keep apprised of what's going on our system. I was in Rio de Janeiro last year, and there was this is like a simple thing because everybody can do it now, but one of the most basic things that we learned there was, you could actually, through digital screens at all of your kiosks, you could actually provide a customer care person to sit with somebody at night when they're waiting for the bus and talk to them, and it's just like creating a sense of security around, somebody who's riding alone, possibly at night, maybe even during the day, but to have a buddy, and it's like something so simple as that, which isn't even technology heavy, except that the mechanism for having that communication is enabled by technology, right? So I think that's, those are the kinds of opportunities. We're always looking for new ideas. Actually, one of the things that I'm dying to do here that I still haven't gotten off the ground it has nothing to do with like, improving security and stuff, but it's all about the customer experience. I don't know if any of you have Googled the Pepsi installation of augmented reality in London at a bus stop. So Google it, or I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link. But I know you guys are all Googling it right now, but but what they did was they installed all this augmented reality stuff like cameras and screens and things like that at this bus stop. And they would have, I don't know if they had artists or whoever, but they would like create all these different augmented reality things. So like if you're sitting at the bus and you look to the right, it looks just like the street that's next to you. And they might have like a tiger walking down the street, or they might have like a robot, blowing things up next to you, or somebody like grabbing onto a balloon and getting taken away. And it's like, it's just a super fun thing that, we could really get people engaged about. I have no idea how much it costs, but I'm really hoping that we can do something like that somewhere in our service area. I was thinking at the at the Discovery District would be great. You know, maybe Legacy West, you know, like there are different places around our service area where we could actually try to do this, but we would have to have resources and time and all that other stuff. So that doesn't answer your question at all about what gets me most excited, but that is the one thing that I'm like, I've got to do that.
All right, I've got here a question that is kind of essentially boils down to the last mile problem. You know, in light of the fact that many workplaces are not easily accessible by transit, how do we ensure that employers and, you know, their employees feel like DART is the right choice for them to get to their, you know, place of business, their place of employment, and you know, and how do we also ensure that employers are incentivized to encourage their employees to do that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of employers, a lot of businesses around our area are very excited about transit. Now they're excited about it, but then they build a massive parking garage next to their new office. So I think, you know, I think that the answer to that is really working closely with our cities to reimagine how to close the gap, right? Because it's like, I mean, I think about the areas kind of divided by the North Texas Tollway, right? I mean, and you know, I'll use Legacy as an example because there's all kinds of amenities, restaurants and shops on the east side of the tollway. You've got Legacy West on the other side, even though Legacy West has a lot of great places to go as well. But it's like, you know, how do you close that gap when somebody has to walk across a Texas turnaround and a massive, you know, highway or toll road, and you know, they're crossing multiple islands to get to the other side of the highway, and that happens all along the tollway. I mean, it happens in Addison, it happens in Plano, it happens, you know, just everywhere, and it happens in all of our cities because every city has a US 75 or a tollway or a George Bush or whatever. So working with the cities to figure out how we could reimagine that connection, the connectivity between, you know, a place of business and a great lunch spot, or, you know, some residences on one side of the highway trying to get to, you know, Village on the Parkway or whatever. It's really important for us to, you know, get in the heads of the pedestrian, right? Our entire landscape here has been built for a car. And a lot of our cities, this is not their fault, so there's no blame going on here, but our cities just have not really been thinking about how do we make this more pedestrian friendly? Even downtown here, right? I mean, how many times are you walking around downtown and cars are not looking at you at all, right? Happens all the time, but you know, I'm still looking for a pedestrian advocacy organization here in North Texas. Haven't found it, by the way. I'm so glad to have a transit advocacy organization. Don't change. But it's so, I mean, it's just like, when did anybody think about the pedestrian? When did people think about people? Because, you know, I talk about this all the time when I'm speaking in front of audiences here in North Texas. It's like we've forgotten that people live here. And I think it's great that North Texas is all about, you know, bringing business here, being friendly to business, but who runs the businesses? It's people. And we've got to improve the experience for people on a daily basis. And that includes their pedestrian experience when they're getting from point A to point B. If the point B is, you know, a transit service, or if it's their destination, who cares? But being able to walk safely and be able to get where you want to go and not have to be afraid. And I walk all the time because I live downtown. So, you know, I don't like the idea that people who are walking around have to be afraid for their lives when they walk here. And so, so clearing that last mile hurdle, bridging that gap has everything to do with working with the cities, I think. And I think DART is very willing to make investments to improve the access to transit bus stops or transit stations, rail stations, and transfer centers. But that also includes, by the way, you know, improving that experience, even from the edge of a park and ride to our station platform, right? In a lot of cases on our system, we have a massive amount of parking between the neighborhood and our platform. And that space is highly unused right now. I mean, I think our utilization right now is between 10 and 15% at most of our park and rides, if not all. And so to me, I'm like, how do we close that gap? You know, so it doesn't feel like a big barrier to get to the platform. because we can light it, that's fine, but it's just, it's dead space. It's being unproductive. And in an area where we are running out of space, I think it'd be good for us to leverage that space more.
I love that you brought up parking. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But I did just want to, since you mentioned that you were looking for a pedestrian advocacy group, I think the next level up would be bicycle advocacy groups. I just want to shout out the Dallas Bike Coalition. Get back there. So get in touch with them. They'll probably have lots of great feedback about how that could probably, add some bike amenities to stations and whatnot. On the topic of parking, you mentioned the parking lots and how lots of employers have a lot of parking. They love transit, and then they go and build a parking garage. Parking reform is back on the menu at the Dallas City Planning Commission. So this is probably a simple yes/no question, but does DART plan to take any kind of stance with regards to advocating for parking reform in Dallas?
Yeah, I think so. When it was up before, I believe we wrote a letter in support of some form of reform. I don't know that we told them what to do, even though I'm sure we have opinions. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how frustrated I am that on every corner in downtown, if I look around, there's at least 3 massive, multi-level parking garages in my view. And it's, I think to myself, like, first of all, are those actually used right now? Probably not. But it tells me a lot about the priorities that our region has placed on the use of private vehicles. And so, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you never ever think like maybe you should throttle, parking and things like that, then you're gonna always have people driving. You make it very cheap and abundant to park your car. That's just the way, that's gonna always hurt transit. It's not the sole reason that transit is not used more. I fully own that, DART has not always been the best, but we've really tried to improve that over the last 3 years. And so we're to a point now where I think people can start relying on us more. And if we continue to grow our services, then I think we're gonna make things a lot better for people, so that it's no longer necessary for them to consider driving their own personal vehicle to wherever they need to go. Of course, we see that all the time with the state fair. People don't want to drive to the state fair; they take transit. So we've shown that we can actually provide that service.
All right. Let's see. So continuing on that theme of developing the station areas, how much influence does DART have with development around transit hubs? So is the focus more on influencing development on hubs themselves, or more on shifting transportation hubs to existing developments?
Say that again.
I guess let me rephrase. I guess this question is asking basically, like, is DART's focus more on influencing development around the existing transportation hubs, or rather building new transportation hubs at existing developments?
Oh, okay. Well, I think the lowest hanging fruit is trying to develop around our existing hubs. Certainly, in working with our cities, as they do redevelopments and things like that, what our approach would be to encourage them to create new transit hubs at those locations. So I hope that makes sense, because I'm not interested in telling the cities how to redevelop their land, right? I mean, that's their local decision. But when they bring in new developments, and a lot of the cities, when they bring in new developments, they're looking at higher density. And so I want them to leverage DART when they start to do those redevelopments within their city, because I think there's a huge opportunity. And I think if we don't do that, that's a lost opportunity that, it's not something we can't overcome, but I think I think if we set it up right from the outset, we're gonna have a lot more success in the future. But like I said, we have all kinds of surface parking lots around our current transit hubs that are just underutilized. And so the extent to which we can leverage our land assets to, maybe we assemble that land that we own with land that the city owns and create a much better piece of property that's more attractive for developers. I mean, to me, that's a great outcome. And so that's why we have to work with our cities on all of those ideas. we actually have our real estate inventory that we've been working on for quite some time so that we can put that out on the internet and have everybody, have it available to the development community so that if they're interested, they can kind of see, okay, I'm going to buy this land in this location, and adjacent to that is a DART property that maybe I could work with them on. So we're trying to, trying to understand the value of our land. That's the other piece is, and this is something that I think is important for our strategic plan is understanding the value that we bring to the table and making sure that we capitalize on that value. If we're going to be an equity partner with development, with developers, we want to make sure that that we're not just giving up the farm, right? We want to make sure that we're leveraging our true value and making sure that we bring a return on investment, because that return on investment can be reinvested in better services for you all.
I love that you brought up the DART parking lots because was going to be the next question. So you answered that for me. Thank you so much. Gonna kind of change tracks here a little bit. No pun intended. But no, I intended that pun. That's a lie. So what plans do DART and Trinity Metro for the future of the TRE, such as possible increase in frequency or Sunday service?
You'd asked me that before last Tuesday. I might have had a different answer. I mean, I'll say that there is a huge desire on the part of both Community Metro and DART to make the TRE better and be able to provide more services on it and higher frequencies. We're suffering from the same fate that all commuter rail in the country is suffering from, which is that people really aren't going back to work in the office, or at least the types of people who are riding commuter rail, like intercity commuter rail. So, right now, I think because all of our budgets are really limited and constrained, we're really trying to figure out how we continue to invest in TRE given the election, not knowing really where the federal government's going to be going with transit at all, much less investments in intercity commuter rail. So we're trying to kind of look at our investments to see, to prepare, right? Like we're not going to just completely cut everything that we were planning to do, but we just want to be aware going into this next administration, like if we're going to have to pivot somehow or delay somehow, how will that take place? And how can we make sure that we're not compromising what our customers need, while trying to react to or respond to what happens in the new administration. This is a big wild card. Nobody really knows, right? I mean, I think you all discussed this a little bit earlier in the committee reports, but we're paying attention to this as you are, and we're seriously working on those things, seriously thinking about them, because we're not going to take it for granted.
All right. I've now got a question here about what options does DART provide for local entities such as a neighborhood association or a PID? I don't know what that acronym stands for. I'm sorry.
Public improvement district or
that. Thank you. To paying more into DART for additional local service.
I don't know the answer to that. I hope somebody's going to give me these questions again later so I can respond to them. But I don't know the answer to that. Okay, good. I don't know if we have anything like that, but it's something for us to think about, because I think as areas are redeveloped using these PIDs and things like that, I think some people would say, well, when we generate more tax revenue, you guys get a penny of it. So it's not that we have I don't know that we have actively gone out to try to generate more revenue through those types of arrangements, but you just gave me a good idea to follow up on.
Question that should be credited to Hexel.
Oh, good. Of course. Well, I mean, I will say that, a PID could decide, right? Could decide that that's part of the tax they're paying into, right? I mean, but it's all a business decision, right? When you do a pro forma for your development, and you participate in a PID, you have to figure out like how you're going to use those funds. And so, I mean, nobody wants to give up any money. So I think that might be better asked as a developer question or a city question, but I'm not sure. But good question.
Got a, hold on, comment, can you show me that question one more time? All right. So we've got a question here about the plans, transit-oriented development around DART stations that so far haven't quite come to pass. What would you say is the main barrier to those, coming into place? So things like the Walnut Hill, Mockingbirds, parking lot, Parker Road, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. There's no one reason why things don't come to fruition faster. I mean, okay, DART's a bureaucracy, the cities are bureaucracies. I mean, everybody has challenges. So, and sometimes, frankly, it's just the market. Sometimes the market's not ready. And so, developers, I think, they're very smart and they know how to get their pro formas together and make it financially viable. And so, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question other than to say that, I think when the market conditions are indicative of its time, then those development opportunities tend to come around a lot faster, and then the pressure is on to really respond quickly. As part of our strategic plan, we are working on, as part of the Fantastic Spaces and strategic relationships goals, we're working on, how DART streamlines its processes and makes itself more attractive as a partner in development so that we can move more quickly on opportunities and so we don't have to sit around on them forever. Because I think historically DART has taken a long time to make some decisions as well. It's not only us, but what we want to do is make sure that we're not the obstacle. So that's part of our organizational efficiency effort, is to make ourselves as easy to work with as possible without giving up the farm.
All right, I've got a few questions here with regards to non-DART cities. So when it comes to possible, some city council members have floated the idea of DART adding more cities. Are there any cities that you think DART is ooh, that would be a really great ad, or something what DART has thoughts about, oh, here's things we could work with, even if you're not a member city, other services DART could provide in exchange for compensation. What is DART's thoughts around working with non-member cities like that?
Yeah, I think DART would be very happy to work with all the cities that are not part of our service area currently. But I don't. When I say that, I'm not saying that they have to become members of DART in order for us to work with them. I think if they want some service from the DART service area or some service that DART can provide to them at premium, we would be happy to provide those services if it's really just an issue of having a contacting mechanism for them to get the service. But I wouldn't, for cities that are not in our service area, I'm not interested in subsidizing their service in any way because that's the service that you all pay for. And so, we need to make sure that if we're providing services outside of our service area, that we're fully compensated for all costs associated with that service. We do have a board policy, we refer to it as 3.07, that has some parameters in it around whether or not DART can provide those types of services outside the service area. And right now there are limitations saying, we can do it for, I think, up to 3 years. And during that time, the city has to figure out a plan for becoming a member of DART, or we just discontinue the service. And I don't think that, I know that that policy was well intentioned when it was crafted, but it has never resulted in any new members of DART. So in my mind, I don't actually have a strong opinion whether these cities become members of DART or not. But what I want to do is I want to be of service to them. And if they're willing to pay for it, then we can do that. But paying for it includes any additional resources that I have to put towards doing that. Because if I take away, an employee to help administer a contract for, McKinney or for Frisco or whoever, that's one person that I don't have to do things for our current member cities. So, that's how I think about it is, how do I actually replace in kind the resources so that the DART service area is always kept full.
Did you guys collect these questions ahead of time? Okay. Oh, you guys are using like a Slido or something.
In your experience, what have you found to be the most effective way when you're advocating to somebody to ride transit? What, how do you convince someone to take the bus or train instead of taking their car?
I think I only hang out with youths who like transit, but I mean, no, I mean, I have, I usually I personally escorted them on the train or the bus. It's always been, hey, let's go take the train. Like it hasn't been like a, let's, like, do you want to take transit? It's more like, let's take transit to this, to the Hollywood Bowl or whatever, let's do that. And, it's like, it's never been a yes or no kind of thing. It's been almost a command. But I'll tell you a story though, because, so I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, and Columbia didn't have great transit back then. Now they have Columbia Transit. And so when I moved to Colorado, I actually learned how to take transit for the first time. And my husband, who grew up in the South City of St. Louis, he had taken the bus, the city bus, all the time when he was growing up. And so he looked everything up for me on RTD's website, and he got everything for me and got me set up. And I took the bus in until I moved much closer to the office and ended up walking to work every day. But having learned how to take transit in Denver, I started talking about it all the time with my family, and all of my family were drivers all the time. And so then my sister, who at that time, I think she lived in Los Angeles, and then she moved to Seattle. And she mostly drove because she was living out in the suburbs and it wasn't very accessible. But all of my sisters eventually, over time, moved to heavily urbanized areas where there was better access to transit. And then my parents also ended up moving to Seattle, and they all ultimately became transit riders all the time. And it's awesome because, whereas I thought, we would always be car people for our whole lives, like now we're all transit people. And so it's just been a matter of being able to talk about it and get people excited about what's possible. And also being in an area where you can access transit pretty easily.
All right, next we've got, all right, I'm going to preface this by saying like we understand this is kind of a wild hypothetical. There are a lot of people here who are fans of the now shelved D2 plans. So out of curiosity, we have a question here about what conditions would need to exist for DART to take those D2 plans off the shelf? And then if that happened, how much rework in terms of like the planning, the permitting, the environmental review, how much of that was already done would have to be redone should that be taken off the shelf?
Yeah, so I think the first thing about D2 is that it was an additional, it was supposed to be a capacity add to downtown, right? And at the time that it was being envisioned, it was a $2 billion investment, and by the time it ever actually comes to fruition, it's probably more like a $4 billion investment. So we had this agreement with the city of Dallas that certain triggers had to be met for us to move forward with that plan. And of course, with the pandemic, things have changed, right? I think we had to have enough demand on our light rail system to go to 3-car trains on 10-minute headways and things like that. Please stop me if I'm getting too wonky here, but all of those things in terms of the levels of service on the existing light rail were not going to happen because the way our system is designed today, we have geometric constraints on either end of the downtown section that don't actually allow us to get to that level of service downtown. Now, did people know that when they wrote that into the ILA? I don't know, probably. But I inherited this. So, when I came, I said, well, wait a second, why are we spending $2 billion on this when we're not fixing our capacity constraints on either end of downtown? Because it's going to be more cost effective for us to fix those capacity constraints, and then we can increase capacity through the downtown section. it would actually save us money, and then we can take that other money and reinvest it in other ways to help our riders. So it's been a constant conversation since I've been here to really understand what the demand really is for V2. And quite frankly, we were going in circles trying to get an alignment on V2. We couldn't get everyone to agree. And so in my mind, like, how much more money do you spend trying to get everyone, to rally around a particular alignment when we still have these capacity constraints? And so that's when we really started talking about the system modernization program, which is now DART Transform. And so system modernization really started to look at our assets and look at what things we had to improve in order to increase the capacity and the reliability of the entire light rail system, not just the bottlenecks at either end of downtown. But downtown is always going to be a bottleneck, if we don't fix these capacity constraints. And so, we started to price out, how we make those improvements, what's the cost going to be. The DART Transform program is a $2.5 billion investment. And we're going to have to pay for that a little at a time. But the nice thing about these state of good repair projects is that the little projects, they're not little, but the projects are a little bit more defined in smaller pieces, so that you're not having a major corridor investment all at once. So we decided that it would be better for us to defer V2. And when I say defer it, we didn't kill it. We're just moving it outside of our 20-year plan, because for all intents and purposes, we don't actually have a lot of support for V2, from our city, city being Dallas. We don't have a lot of support for that project right now. Doesn't mean that we won't revive it in the future, right? But we really think that the better investment would be to take, it's not actually $2 billion that we had, right? We had, it was like mostly grant funding and financing that was going to pay for that. So instead of taking on all that debt, we took whatever money we had, about $1 billion, and we said, okay, let's program that out to do the system modernization work that we need to do, because that will actually improve the resiliency of our existing system and make sure that it's intact for the foreseeable future. And we felt that that was a better investment of the money and the resources that we have. So it's, when will it come off the shelf? Sometime beyond the 20 years from today. So 2044, maybe the earliest at this time, unless we grow leaps and bounds and suddenly see a need for it. But even at that, it still takes, we would have to start over, given the fact that, we'll start with the alignments that we have, right? But we would have to do some tweaking, because things will change within the next 20 years. And then what will happen is we'll have to start the environmental process all over again, because you can't, those things have a shelf life of about 5 years. So we'll have to do some changes to that. It's not ideal, but I do think that, I would say it's courageous for the board and for the city of Dallas to say, you know what, let's pause and let's rethink this. Because again, we don't have people coming downtown like they used to. And so that demand is just not there. And so it was becoming increasingly more difficult for us to justify spending the money on that versus the transform work. The system modernization work was just much more important, because most places in the country, less so around the world, but most places in the United States spend all kinds of money on new construction, expansion, extensions of light rail lines or whatever, at the expense of not investing in the rest of the system. And then we all wonder why things are breaking down. So we want to make sure that we bring everything up to where it should be in terms of the quality of our equipment and infrastructure. And then we can build from there. We can add on, do whatever we need to. But until we get this other piece right, we're just gonna have another piece of track that we can't take care of. And I don't want that.
I think that's our cue.
Oh, they're closing at 4.
All right, I think that is our cue. So thank you again so much for
It's my
answering all of our
pleasure.
questions.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll just say that you know, DART staff are happy to come and talk to you all at any time. So if you have something that you want us to come and talk about, I didn't even talk about Silverline today, but I will just give you guys a heads up that sometime, I know we've been saying late 2025, early 2026. I'm pretty sure it's going to be in 2025. But sometime in the spring, we'll have a hard date for you all. But we'll be happy to come and brief you. And then, of course, we'll also hopefully get you guys out on the system sometime when we're closer to opening. All right, thank you. Thank you. Can I get this back?
For those of you who don't know, I'm Dave Brady, co-director of the Garland Bus User Society. I know for a fact that there's less than 10 people in this room who involved in the birth of that. I've been at it for over 35 years. You've heard a lot of good points from this, and a lot of good questions were answered. There's more to come. But the main thing I'm saying right now is making sure that we want our city councils, commissions, legislators, and others thinking 1% alone. Don't go to in any work. Talk to the city, get them to talk to their council members, get them to talk to the servers, and everybody involved. I can assure you, it excites me to know, to see what is happening today, because this is the kind of thing that we learned back in 1932 after the LSTA election was a failure. We came back together in groups like this, and the third things that we're seeing today. Don't stop. And stay on them, on it, and see the facts that the costs of that now there's a lot of and using effort to help them out. But that's all their feeding budgets. So, what found was the fact that this is still a out for every series of answers to what and say, stop, that's Duck's money. That's not the city's money, that's Duck's money, and Duck is the service of all. I for a long time. I mean, and it's a reality, and it's time to work.
Okay, if anyone's hungry, we're going to the Exchange Food Hall in the Discovery District for some food. Feel free to join us there. Okay, you got like 2 seconds.
Real quick on on canvassing, what I've done is ask people if they have a second at the station, and then if they're fine with it, then I say, so the city of blank has voted on a resolution to file legislative action to cut DART's budget by 25%. This may result in reduced frequency. So I show them the QR and ask them to scan it and submit an email to their state representatives to have them be against the legislative action at the meeting. And I just go around stations talking about that.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll be in touch.